Alright, welcome back. Hope everyone's enjoying, I guess what's left of the 1.5 anniversary, huh? I mean, if you're catched up, we're done with story part 2. We finished all the mini games for the king, so I guess you're pushing challenge mode and trying to get the rest of those challenges done. Other than that, I guess we have whatever co-ops left for today and solo raid, but I think by the time this video comes out, co-op is done. Solo raid is still going for a few more days. And that's actually what I wanted to talk about. Because I know some people asked for a guide when it came to solo raid. And even though I'm a veteran, I wouldn't say that I'm a connoisseur or like really good, like a pro with solo raid. I push enough that I can hit the 3 to 5% cap. So I could get the rewards that I want. I really don't care about the frame, so I don't worry about getting the third frame. I just try to at least get 5%. So I probably could like min and max my teams, but I tend to not do it. But I felt like maybe doing it this time just to maybe show off a team guide or maybe some advice that I have. At least they worked out for me. If you want a really good like guide, you probably want to go look at Sky. He's great, phenomenal, does a lot of guides for solo raid and has like a really great spreadsheet that I also used for this, by the way. So credit to him for helping me push and some advice that I wanted to give alongside this. But that being said though, let's go to solo raid. So when it comes to solo raid, this is very much end game content. And if you're new, you could probably push maybe 3, 4, maybe even 5 if you've been starting since the beginning of the anniversary and you pushed really far and you've been grinding. But that being said though, please don't feel discouraged if you can't push that far. Seriously, this is literally endgame content. And there's a strong DPS check in this. So don't feel discouraged like you're not able to. Because I remember when Solo Raid first came out, it was difficult and it was really tough because it was Mother Whale. And I hated it. I was not good. I think I got to like maybe 5 and then I struggled and I slowly, over the time with the other Solo Raids, I got from like 6 to 7 to finally getting to challenge mode. And challenge mode is pretty much the main part of this event for everybody, especially whales and veterans, because that's where the DPS check comes in for the rewards. Because the way that the rewards work, and a lot of people would realize, if you got to 7, it's like, well, I only did a certain amount of damage to them, but how does everybody have like 6 million damage? Because that was way less. That's way more than whatever the cap is for 7. Well, that's because in challenge mode, you do as much damage as you can with your 5 teams. And this is pretty much it. And where I actually got to 1.45%. And that's actually the best I've ever done because I've actually tried for this video. Usually I'm like in the 3%, 4%. But I've actually tried for this video. Shout out to Sky once again. But he actually like had some decent comps that I can use. Unfortunately, I don't have all those characters, so that's where I'm going to be talking about substitution and stuff. But I can also give you some advice. So when it comes to these beginning ones, if you know you're going to be able to breeze through this and you're on challenge mode, you really don't even have to worry about a healer that much because you can just DPS it. That being said, if you're still new and you're still struggling from 3 to 5, I still think you actually need that healer to provide cover or healing for your team so they can survive longer. So make sure you're aware of that. But with all that out the way, let's get to actual teams, right? So let's go to the challenge mode because this is mostly where I wanted to show off my teams from where I ended up succeeding. So this is going to be a little difficult when it comes to substitution because teams for me were already limited because I didn't have all the burst ones. I didn't have all the burst 2s because there were some limited events or I just got shafted in the banner and I just didn't do that well. So in terms of what I can actually like tell you guys is going to be a little bit hard if you don't have all these units because solo raid's already difficult enough because you need 25 Nikkes, 5 for each team. And that's already a tough one, especially if you're free to play and you're not heavily investing in some units. So, honestly, for me, this Team 1 is one of my main DPSs. This is what gets me 1 billion damage just with this team alone. So this is like my main DPS team that I've fully invested in. And I can't imagine having like just started like maybe a month or two ago and you're trying to figure this out. It can be a struggle. But with that being said, I really wanted to talk about it. So with my first team, as you can see, I have Crown here in position 1. Position 2, I have Litter. Position 3, I have Red Hood. Position 4, I have Scarlet Black Shadow. Position 5, I have Rapunzel here. Now, there are a couple substitutions that you can do here if you don't have Litter. You can put D-Killer Wife here. And actually, I think she would be better here for the piercing that she provides to Red Hood. So you can break the core in parts more easily. So if you have D-Killer Wife, put her here instead of Litter. But if you don't have them, then you're stuck with Litter. Or you can also put Volume here. Volume would also be another good option. However, I like having Litter here because she's more heavily invested and would benefit my team more, personally. Now, if you don't have Red Hood, and you have maybe Alice, use Alice here. Or if you have Maxwell, and put her here instead. That being said, though, you out of those 3 units, if you have them or you don't have them, use whatever's more invested. And if you don't have substitutions, then if you don't have any of those substitutions, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to provide substitutions for this specific team. I'll try to keep providing more teams and substitutions as we go, but as for now, this is the restriction, and I'm sorry. I know it could be tough because it's a lot of Nikkes. And then in terms of Black Scarlet Shadow, if you don't have her, you can honestly put in Winter Ludmilla. That being said, though, if you're new, I mean, you don't have the winter units, so that's kind of it. So, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best here, but it's so hard after a while. Now, with Rapunzel, it could be a little bit more lenient. So if you don't have her, because she's obviously a pilgrim healer, if you don't have her, you could put in, honestly, you could put in Marciana. If you don't have Marciana, you can even put in maybe Soda. Now, if you don't have Soda, you could put in Summer Helm, because she provides that healing that you need for Crown. This is all we need. We just need healers that can provide that buff for Crown. I would want to say Pepper, but Pepper, I feel like her CDR, like her burst cooldown is just not great. But if you already have a burst 1 here, you don't have to worry too much. It's just the fact that I feel like she can die easily if you're not careful with her. So if you don't, you can almost just put in Summer Mary. You can put her here, and you'd be fine. If you don't have any of those, I'm sorry. Once again, I apologize. I'm trying my best. Outside of that, though, when we go look at Team 2, for position 1, I used Dorothy, I used Summer Anise, I used Scarlet, I used Marciana, and I used Privity. Now, this can get a little bit difficult because if I feel like Dorothy's a key member in this team, so I can't really offer substitutions. Now, obviously, Summer Anise was last summer's unit, so if you don't have her, or she's not that invested, a good substitution in this case would either be putting in Anise, or, once again, putting in Helm. That'd be a good substitution in this case. But I went with Summer Anise because I actually had her fully invested. My Alice is somewhat invested, but my Summer Anise is 10-10-10 with overload gear. So I put her here. And my Scarlet as well. Now, once again, this is where you're going to kind of have to flex unit this, because I feel like Alice might be your best bet here if you already have Helm here. So if you don't have Scarlet, just put one of those other 2 there. And Marciana and Privity are key players here to keep ammo reduction down for Summer Anise. And you need that iron check, so I'm sorry, you need to have Marciana here. That's one thing that I need to remind everybody here, is that you at least need 1 iron character, because you need to do it for the shield when you shoot it because only iron characters can shoot it. So be aware of that when you're also doing this team building and trying to substitute things, please. Now, when it comes to Team 3, I use the Schoolgirls. So, position 1, I used Tia. And in this case, I used Alice for position 2. Position 3, I used Winter Ludmilla. Position 4, I used Naga. And position 5, I used Volume. Now, this team is a little iffy because this is where my DPS starts falling, because this is where my investment for units starts falling, because I heavily invested in the Schoolgirls. Outside of that, it's falling down. As much as I play this game, it's hard to keep up with skill modules and invest in so many units. So I'm trying my best here, but this is where my damage starts falling off. And I'm just saying that just out of experience. Now, with this team, there are a few things you can do with this team. However, I kind of struggled with this, so it's up to you. But if you don't have Alice, you could put in Red Hood, Scarlet, or you can even put in Maxwell. Now, the problem with that is that those units for me are less invested than what I have available. And the fact that the Schoolgirls target the core, I felt like maybe Winter Ludmilla would be a better fit here. So I apologize if you don't have those units, but this is where I start struggling as well. So I'm just trying to give what I worked for that 1%. You know what I mean? And I used Volume here because she's just a decent fit for a burst, one that I have some investment in. And she's also a good CDR reduction unit, so keep that in mind. Now, for this team, I used the bunnies, and I used Jackal, and I used Maxwell here for my Iron Code characters. I used Jackal for position 1, Blanc for position 2, Modernia for position 3, position 4 was Noir, and position 5 was Maxwell. Now, this one's kind of just like, this is where I just start free-falling and just like making it up as I go, because I don't have this many characters. I don't have enough to put here. If you don't have Jackal and you have another unit, you could put in D-Killer Wife or Litter here, or Volume if you haven't used her yet, or even, I don't know, even go ahead and try to put like Ludmilla here or something. Like, this is, when you get to like team 4 and 5, if you're not like a whale, you're gonna just use whatever you can. Let's be real here. Like, I know this is like a guide and stuff, but this gets so difficult that it starts free falling. You could put in maybe Pepper here, like whatever you can for your remainder teams. And if you don't have enough, that's perfectly fine. This is the way Nikke is, and especially if you're new, you probably don't have that many units, so just try your best. And now, for position, team 5, I personally used Pepper, Rupee, I used Snow White, Laplace, and I used Noise. Now, the reason why I specifically used Pepper and Noise here is because Pepper has a longer cooldown when it comes to her burst 1. So I feel like having 2, especially with Noise's taunt to get him distracted, might help the team. Now, if you have a more invested Snow White, you might want to replace Laplace with Maxwell. But I do not have either of them fully invested, so I don't have a one-shot Maxwell. If you have a really invested Snow White and Maxwell, you can create a good one-shot team for the core, and it's beautiful. I don't, though. So, this is where I struggled. So, honestly, when it came to this final team, this was the team I did the least damage with. So, if you don't have Pepper, or if you don't have Litter, you don't have D-Killer Wife, you don't have any of these, you could also put in Miranda if you want. You can also put her in, but I just don't. They're just way less invested, so I didn't feel confident putting them in. And also these teams, even if you have these characters, mileage may vary because of investment issues. I might be invested with so many characters, I might not be invested with so many characters. You might have the complete opposite. So you might find other team comps that work together because you have higher investments for them. So just be aware of that. And now, Rupee can be swapped with, you can either put Rupee, you could put Dala, you can even put Litter here. You could put Eleg here if you have her. But you really need to worry about having these Iron Code units survive. So that's why I try to have as many as I can, especially on these final teams that I'm just trying to survive with. And now, I really wanted to talk about her boss herself. Because the way that she works is that she has 3 phases. Now, I'm going to put it on screen, but there's a few things that you have to worry about with her. And right off the bat, you really should be focusing her core if you can't do enough damage. If you can do enough damage, then and you could get the pincers as well, then you don't have to worry. But the core and the tail are your main focus. Because if you do not destroy the tail, Indivilia will do this attack that will cause an instant one-shot of one of your teammates, and it hurts. And it can ruin your run, especially from continuing to the other phases. Now, if you actually destroy the core and you destroy the tail, but you don't destroy the pincers, Indivilia will do another move that I actually prefer trying to cover against, because with the tail move, you actually cannot block from it. It's just going to hurt no matter what, and it can kill your team one shot, whatever teammate it is. So if you manage to shoot the tail, you manage to shoot the core, but you can't get the pincers, she will do this move where her hands will go together and then cause this shockwave, and you can actually block it, so you can still recover health and cover a healing after the fact. So it's not a deal breaker or anything, so you'll be able to continue the fight. That being said, though, if you manage to DPS check it and you get past the first phase and you get to the second phase, where she's in her sweet, like, earthworm form, when it comes to that form, you really have to struggle and try to, like, right off the bat, you'll have to wait. There'll be these gray lines, and you just follow them. Follow the circles, because it actually shows you where the circles that you actually are able to shoot come up. The gray ones are invincible, so you can't shoot those, so don't even worry about those. Now, when you start shooting the red ones, you really have to follow the time frame, because you have to kill them all before the time runs out and be fast enough to shoot them all. And then after that, when you fight and you're going through the blades and stuff, it's so hard to shoot the blades because of how fast Indivilia moves, that it can be a struggle, especially with the tail in the previous phase. But trying to get through that blade and just doing enough damage and survive as long as you can is your best bet. And it gets harder and harder with the remainder teams that you have left, unless you're like a whale and everything's maxed out and you're just good to go. But for me, I really struggled with my last 2 teams because I did not have that much investment in them compared to my previous teams. With that being said, though, just try your best and don't try to focus for higher numbers. This is endgame. And with all that out the way, I think that's my advice. That's as much as advice as I can try to provide. And I'm sorry if it was not enough. I'm sorry if it seems like a lot, because there's a lot of Nikkes you need, but that's just kind of how solo raid is, because in the end, it's just the end game. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I know there are other guides out there that are helpful, but I wanted to try to provide some insight onto my personal experience with it and how I did it, and it worked out for me. I hope I don't have to replay my challenge mode for solo raid, because it gives me a headache. But that being said, I hope this was informative and it helped you at all. Thank you for watching, and I hope everyone has a lovely day, a lovely night, wherever you're from. Thank you, and take care. Goodbye.